Welcome to the Antioch College Winter Tele-Townhall, which is going to be tonight all about admissions and co-op. My name is Jeanne Kay. I'm from the class of 2010 at Antioch, and I'm also the annual giving manager here in Advancement. Before I introduce our speakers tonight, let me tell you can press *3 to ask a question on the air throughout the evening. That would be *3. And at the end of this phonecast, we'll be making some announcements about the college, including some really good news that we have just heard, and that you'll be among the first to learn, so stay tuned until the end. And let me introduce our speakers tonight. Our first speaker is going to be Garriott Louima. Good evening, Garriott.
Good evening.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I am the Dean of Admission and External Relations. I have been connected to Antioch since about 2010. Back this time around since September, so very happy to be here.
Our second speaker tonight is Richard Krantz. Good evening, Richard.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Rick Krantz. I am a co-op faculty member as well as the Dean of the co-op program, and I am one of the people in this team who works hard to get students jobs out there in the world and gain experience.
Thank you. Our third speaker is Luisa Bieri. Good evening, Luisa.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am also a member of the co-op faculty. I work primarily with students who are doing co-ops in the arts, also with therapeutic communities, and I work very closely with our students who go abroad on co-op, particularly to Latin America.
Thank you. We also have a current student joining us tonight, Ben Zeitzman, who's calling in from Washington, D.C., where he is actually on co-op. Ben, are you there?
I am. Happy to be here.
Can you tell us a bit about you? What class are you in? What is your major?
I'm a second-year student. I'm majoring in literature, and I am in D.C. working with Blue Light Strategies, which is a strategic communications firm. We do a lot of work in politics, mostly Democratic politics, and I would not be here if not for the hard work of Rick and Louisa.
Thank you, Ben. So just a reminder to press *3 if you would like to ask a question about admissions or co-op online. You will be transferred to our advancement staff, and then we will try to answer as many questions as possible tonight. If you're listening online, there's a chat box in which you can ask your questions. So as we're waiting for alumni to call in, let me ask you, Richard, to tell us a bit more about co-op since the reopening. How many co-op placements have happened since 2011?
Well, that is a great question. I arrived at the college at the tail end of that academic year, the 2011-2012 academic year, right when our students were off on their first co-ops, that first inaugural class since in the independence of the college. And since that time, we have done in total actually 1,101 co-op placements. Those are actually co-op quarters. So some students who've gone out for 6-month co-ops, they get counted twice in there. But you can be rest assured we've done over 1,000 co-op placements, and we are continuing to uphold that tradition of getting students out in the world, and co-op is a huge part of their academic career here.
Thank you. And what about international co-ops, Lisa?
So to date, since the reopening of the college, we have placed students internationally on co-ops in 36 different countries. And many of our students who choose to pursue a foreign language while they're here at Antioch are doing a language immersion and cultural immersion component with their co-op abroad. And so we've had many students during this time who have chosen to co-op in Japan with Japanese language, in Latin America or Spain as they learn more with their Spanish language, and also in French-speaking countries around the world.
Wonderful. We're still waiting on a few questions from alumni, but maybe, Garriott, you could tell us a little bit about You've read quite a few applications for next year since then. What can you tell us about the quality of applications you've seen so far?
I can tell you that we are getting applications from students from all over the country. The students who have been admitted have average GPAs at about 3.4. SAT scores, although we're a test optional school, a small number of students choose to have those scores submitted with their applications. We are tracking higher than the national average. So our average test scores rest at 1304. The national average is at 1080. We are receiving applications from about 30% of those applications are from people of color. I'm very much interested in improving access to education to folks of color and from other represented groups. 30% of our applications are from the state of Ohio, and about 60% of all applicants in this cycle are women.
Thank you. We're going to have our first question live. We're going to have Erwin Pomerantz ask his question live. Erwin, can you hear me?
Yes. First, if I may, I'd like to welcome Gary Louima back to Antioch College and wish him well. And I have some boilerplate questions, really. Percentages, current admission data, really. Percentages of applicants who are accepted most recently and a percentage of acceptances that have enrolled. And I wonder if you have any comments on the effort by alumni involved in recruiting for new students.
Sure. We are actually in the middle of our recruitment cycle. Antioch College has rolling admission, so we accept and review applications up until July. So I don't have yield numbers for this term yet, as students won't be matriculated until the start of the fall term in August. We have opened up a small spring enrollment cycle for students who are transferring. So students have until March 5th to submit an application for transfer admission. We've been reading a small number of those applications. We review applications every week. There's a committee of folks that includes faculty and students and members of the admissions team. We read every Wednesday and Thursday. So we've been looking at some strong applications from across the country. I have actually been working with the alumni relations team on the alumni recruitment team, which is a college program to involve alums from across the country in our recruitment efforts. This includes going on high school visits, interviewing applicants when they come through the pipeline, and recommending schools where we should be present. We've been putting together a handbook for alums who are interested in volunteering, and we're asking folks to update their profiles at alumni.antiochcollege.edu to indicate their interest in participating in the alumni recruitment team. We keep two separate databases at the college, one for recruitment and one for admissions, and our IT folks have been working diligently to make connections to those systems so that I have all the names and contact information for folks who have indicated their interest in working on the alumni recruitment team. But one thing that every single alum can do immediately is nominate students for admission to the college. We've gotten a couple of dozen nominations from alums around the country. I encourage everyone to think about their networks, the folks in their communities and their families who might be college age, college ready, and for whom Antioch College is the right college, to go to nominate.antiochcollege.edu or click on the nomination form in the alumni profile.
Thank you, Gary. So reunion is coming up this summer, and last reunion we had some trainings for alumni to get involved in recruiting. Are you anticipating this happening this year at reunion as well?
Absolutely. I've had conversations with the folks in the Alumni Association. I've also spoken to the president of the association, Karen Mulhauser, about scheduling virtual trainings and an on-the-ground training at reunion this summer.
Thank you. We're going to have another question live. We have Peter from New York, from the class of 1961, who has a question. Peter, are you online? Can you hear?
Yes, I am. Okay, Gary, I noticed in some of the alumni communications that the college has hired a consultant evidently in relation to admissions. And I'm wondering what the consultant will be looking for. Will they, for example, be looking to do a reputation study among parents, high school guidance counselors, and high school students themselves, so we know how Antioch is regarded and why we don't seem to be attracting applicants in any significant numbers?
We actually don't have a consultant on the ground or hired for recruitment purposes. There is a consultant working with our finance committees on some strategic planning, but for admissions work, I was hired to do the recruitment and admissions and admissions operations, and I also handle the recruitment marketing. As part of my job, I report to the president and also to the board weekly on how we're doing in admissions, the systems changes that we need to make, the impression that I'm getting from families that we speak with about the college, where Antioch sits on students' lists, the type of students who are interested in us. But no, we don't have a consultant hired, and we don't have plans to hire a consultant on admissions.
Peter, I see you have a second question about the Victories grant.
Yes, I'm not sure. Mr. Louima is the person to answer this, but let me ask it anyway. I would like you to comment on this. The college is very needy of money. At the same time, we've got a program to give money to alumni. Now, I know that money is supplied by a contributor associated with the college, not by the college itself. But it seems to me that's sending out precisely the wrong message. If you're giving money to alumni, why are you asking alumni for money? I wonder if you'd comment on that.
As the annual giving manager,
Sure.
I feel like I have an answer to that. So we are not using money from the college's operating budget or the annual fund for the Victories for Humanities grant, where there was a grant that was given by one of our trustees, Matt Morgan, specifically for this purpose. And the idea is that Antioch College also wants to give back to its alumni. We have wonderful alumni who are doing amazing things in the world from all generations, and we want to support them. We don't think of everything that we do in alumni relations and in advancement as just about getting money for the college. We see it as establishing strong relationships with alumni, and we see it as also supporting our alumni.
I also wanted to comment about how we view the totality of the enrollment management cycle. It begins with a student's first contact with the college, and it continues into the student's relationship as an alumnus of the college. I also think it's important for families to know that when a student comes to Antioch College, the college isn't simply thinking about the tuition dollars that we can glean from that student, but that the college maintains a relationship with the student that goes beyond, that there are networks at the college to help alums do the work of winning victories for humanity even after winning the bachelor's degree. So I think it's monumentally important for Antioch College to demonstrate to its alumni community and to students who are interested in this college that it's more than just a 4-year engagement. It's a lifetime of engagement. Students who come to Antioch College understand and accept the charge of doing work that is more than just the certificate that they'll hang on the wall.
Okay, our next question will be from somebody that many of you might have heard about, which is Karen Mulhauser from Washington, D.C., who is the president of the Alumni Board. Karen, are you here? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Good evening, Karen.
Okay. Good evening. Well, actually, when I got in the queue, some of my questions were to Garrett to explain some of what he's already explained, which is about the recruitment and the admissions work that his office is doing, and a real loud shout out to all of that. And I just encourage all of the alumni who are on the call to wait for information on how each of us can be helping in the future, we're wanting to identify an admissions liaison in each chapter to help work with Garrett's office. But I also want to throw out a question to Rick and Louise about how alumni can help with co-op. Living here in your nation's capital, Washington, D.C., where most of the really good co-op jobs don't pay, one of the things that I've been doing is making our guest room available to Antioch students, and I think there have been 9 or 10 of them so far since Antioch reopened. But I wonder if there are other ways that we can help either identify some new co-op jobs or be a resource to the students when they come to our town. And hi, Ben. Ben is living with us now, the current student on the line.
Richard, would you like to answer this question? How can alumni best support students on co-op?
That's a great question, and Karen, thank you so much for asking that question, but also for being that alum who has for so many years been a partner in developing co-op jobs in Washington and other parts of the country where you have connections, but also in being so kind as to opening up your home and providing students with the very important housing arrangements that sometimes are so wonderful if an alum can sponsor. In general, we want to be connected with alumni, so we are always looking for those jobs in the world that pay, of course. I sort of emphasize that. Pay either in money or perhaps in room and board, those different kinds of arrangements where there's some reciprocity there for a student's work. We firmly believe that every one of our students has a great capacity to add value if they find the right opportunity and to really figure out ways that they can bring out their talents. And alumni who have a sensitivity to students and understand what a young person can contribute to an organization, people who are actively involved in the college and actively thinking about how to engage this generation of young people, they make wonderful co-op employers, and sometimes they make wonderful liaisons to co-op employers. And so I would say about 60% of the jobs that we have are jobs that have been developed through that kind of alumni engagement.
Ben, do you want to tell us a bit about your experience living in DC and as a student, how alumni have helped you and the help that you found the most helpful?
Absolutely. I have found it most helpful out of everything alumni have done for me here. And by alumni in this case, I mean Karen. But what I found to be most helpful has really been getting free rent. I wouldn't be able to be here without her. The thing is, like Karen said, most internship opportunities in the DC metro area don't pay or pay not very well at all. And without Karen, I would never have had this opportunity. And it's really not just working in D.C. It's also living here. That's such a great opportunity. Just last night got to go out with one of the editors of the Washington Post's opinion section, who I just met from being in D.C. Getting to be here where so much is happening, where so many decisions are made, where there's such great culture and that sort of thing. I'm going to go see Winter's Tale, Shakespeare play at the Folger Shakespeare Library in a couple weeks. It's terrific. And without the help of alumni, I wouldn't be able to do any of it.
I've just been asked to ask you about your meeting with alumni in Slovenia, Ben. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. My last co-op, I spent part of it in Slovenia working at a kind of a educational startup, not unlike Antioch, although it's a graduate program. And as it turned out, an Antioch alumnus, Mitya Mershel, from the class of 1965, lives in Slovenia. He is a Slovenian politician and newspaper editor. For years, he was editor-in-chief of Slovenia's largest news daily, Delo, which means labor in Slovenian, fun fact. And Rick actually arranged an opportunity for me to go to Delo's headquarters in Ljubljana and meet with him. And it was one of the most remarkable experiences of my higher educational career so far. This guy is of such remarkable stature in Slovenia, both, in politics and journalism. When he walked into the offices, this huge, bustling office building in downtown Ljubljana, it looked like it was from the 1970s. It looked like I was in All the President's Men. But when he walked in, everybody, no matter how old or young or senior or, they're an intern or whatever, sprung up from their desks. It was like, MacArthur returning to whatever Filipino island MacArthur returned to. I don't remember the specific one. But it was incredible. And he was the most fascinating person. He had, such great stories about working in Slovenian journalism and just what that was like, and his work during the 80s. There was some stuff about international intrigue with Tito in the BBC. It's incredible, and this is something I would never have had the chance to meet otherwise.
Thank you so much, Ben. That is such a great story, and I know that Antiochians love hearing co-op stories, so we're about to have another question from Carl Reverts from the class of 1970, who is also calling from Washington, D.C. Good evening, Carl.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Hey, my question is related to what we're just talking about. And I didn't know it was going to be this kind of conversation. But my question was, of the 1,001 placements that you talked about so far, what percentage have been paid jobs? That's part one of the question. And the second is a question about which jobs continue on to take a second co-op. I'm looking more related to how robust is the program, and your assessment of where you want to go with the co-op program, and to make it more robust if it's not fully robust now. Basically, in general, are you feeling good about the program? But the basic question is some data first.
Thank you. Richard or Luisa, do you have some data for Carl?
I could field that. I have, in terms of hard data, I have not done the full kind of analysis that probably Garrett would expect of me. But I do have the full list of all of the placements right in front of me. And so I can say, in a rough sense, I would venture to say that around 80% of our co-op jobs are paid, if not more. It's actually quite rare that a student can afford to go take an unpaid job out in the world somewhere. The figures, why that data is a little bit messy, is sometimes we have other sources of funds that we are able to mobilize in order to support a student who might otherwise take an unpaid job. And so, but for the most part, our students are not in a position to go out in the world and live for 3 months as a volunteer. And so a great number of our jobs are paid. We do have a number of standing co-op jobs where quarter in, quarter out, we find someone to take that position. And our employers are expecting often to have an Antioch student, and they look forward to them. Certainly, we have a number of local employers that fall in that category. In fact, we were just discussing that today through our Miller Fellow program, which brings in outside sources of funds so that local nonprofits can pay students. But we have jobs like that all around the country. It is difficult for us to promise an employer that we can guarantee that we will always have a student that they would want to hire. And in fact, one of the things that you should understand about co-op, and in terms of its being a robust program, is that we are positioning students for the real world kind of experience. It's not that students get a job just because they're an Antioch student. They get a job because they've demonstrated that they can add value to an organization. And ensuring that they go through that interview process and are fully vetted, and so that they fully know what they're getting into and can make a good decision if they have a number of offers, but also that the employer has a good sense of what that individual can contribute to their organization. That, I think, is what makes for a good relationship. I think in the past, sometimes co-op students got assignments, and so they felt like they had to show up at a certain job, whether they were completely in agreement with that or not. But that is not the case these days. They really have to apply for the positions and show that they can add value. But at the end of the day, it's their decision whether they're going to accept an offer or not.
Thank you. We now have a question from Mariana. Mariana, who is calling from Ocean City, Maryland, and who is from the class of 1979. Good evening, Mariana.
Hi. Oh, you got to me. Great. Oh, my question is this. I'm 69 now, but I still love Antioch, and I would love to help, like, if there's any way I could help with giving information to local guidance counselors, finding out who has what, who knows what, because I think that this is a great time to be part of this form of education now.
Thank
you. Have any...
Garriott, do you have any pointers for Mariana?
Yes, you can absolutely help out. We would love to work with you. If you go to alumni.antiochcollege.edu and update your profile, there will be a question on there about how you'd like to volunteer, and just make the selection for alumni recruitment team. We would get in touch with you. There is some code of ethics stuff that we'd like to send out to folks so that they're aware of what they can or cannot say, to be more familiar with what's in the curriculum today. And we can also ship out to you some materials, our view book, and other materials that you can share with guidance counselors.
Thank you. We're now going to read out a question from the chat box from online questions. And that is a question from Matt Leavitt. He asked, per their website, it appears Antioch will not be participating in the Colleges That Change Live college fairs. Can you please explain why not?
We are actually going to be participating in the West Coast and Midwest fairs. Those are the locations where we draw our most applicants, and it's important for us to use the college resources in a way that would be most effective. So as opposed to going to New England, where we don't draw as many applications, we're trying to maximize use of staff time and resources in the areas where we see the most inquiries and applications. But we continue to be a member of CTCL, and we will be participating in those two fairs.
For all of you listening at home, please don't forget you can dial *3 at any minute. We still have quite a lot of time to answer more of your questions, so don't hesitate to press *3, and you will be transferred to our advancement staff and then put on air a few minutes later if we have enough time. We now have a question from Stanley from Greenfield, Massachusetts. Stanley, good evening.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, I see you're a former faculty of Antioch College.
I was on the faculty from, 1970 to 2000. I taught organic chemistry, and I trained lots of pre-meds. When the college reopened, I was instrumental in designing the new science program for the college. I also did some work on recruiting faculty for the new college, and I am interested in science and medicine as careers for students, and I'm wondering how is recruiting going for students who have an interest in science and medicine, and I'm wondering also what kinds of co-op jobs you have for students who are interested in science and medicine.
Perfect. Gary, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start with the applications and interest and hand it over to Rick and Louisa. So about 28% of the applicants who come into the pool for this cycle are interested in the sciences broadly. So that would be biomedical science, environmental science, or a self-designed major in science. We have lots of students who have general interests in sciences, specifically students who are interested in ultimately going to med school, vet school, or becoming nutritionists. So we're at about 28% of those applications in this cycle.
Great. And I just wanted to follow up from Co-op. One of the places that you all as alumni are welcome to visit on the web is our Antioch Engaged site. The website is co-op.antiochcollege.edu. And this is an online journal of social practice and professional engagement for the Antioch community. And most of the Antioch Engaged site is featuring student stories from their co-op experiences out in the world. And we do have categories on that site. So feel free to take a look and browse there. In the Explore tab, you can see biomed, public health, and health advocacy, our environmental science and ecology sections. And when you go to those, you can take a look at some of the most recent co-op placements in those areas. We have had some wonderful public health and biomed opportunities recently. I'm looking here at the North Shore University Healthcare System in Chicago, Premier Health that's here in the Miami Valley. We've had students working with them, as well as a student at Sibley Memorial right there in D.C. So quite a few stories that you can actually read directly from the students themselves about their experiences, and that as well for the environmental science side.
I could chime in on that as well. If you go to that site, the co-op.antiochcollege.edu, that is the Antioch Engaged site, and up on the left-hand corner there's an Explore button, and that's how you get to the biomed or any of the thematic pages. One of the great biomed placements we've had is with Sheba Medical Center in Israel, outside of Tel Aviv. And we actually sent 3 students over there the year before last, and they participated in a research study, a 3-month research study focusing on breast cancer. This is with an oncology research group, and after that 3 month, they were able to submit for publication a professional article that they wrote with the medical staff there, and which was received and published, in fact. And so the work that our undergraduate students are doing in biomed and in the environmental science field, I think, has been really top-notch. And because of their training, I think because of we have to thank you for the program that you helped put in place. And we're also grateful to the diligence of David Kamler and some of our other faculty members, Kim Landsbergen in the environmental sciences, who really help our students prepare for these things, prepare for these co-ops, and showcase their skills as they're applying for these jobs. But you can read directly, as Luis had said, on the Antioch Engaged site, some of their amazing stories from the field. And I would also just note, Erwin Pomerantz, our first caller today, is one of the people who reads this site. I know that because I see him making comments on some of the students' pages in there, and we just appreciate that kind of engagement. So thank you, Erwin.
Amazing. If you have any more questions for Garriott, Richard, Louisa, and Ben, press *3, press *3. And now we're going to get a question from Dale Glazer from Rocklin, California.
Yes, good evening. Thanks for taking my call. Thanks for putting on this conversation.
Thanks for listening.
I'm a father of an alumni. Spencer just recently graduated.
We know Spencer very well.
Oh, good. My wife and I were very thrilled with the whole Antioch experience, and still look for reasons to come back to Yellow Springs. Now,
I hope you come for reunion this year.
We're definitely have it on our calendar. The question I'm asking is really directed towards the co-op team. We found that the co-op experience was the primary factor for Spencer choosing Antioch, and then we elected to create a co-op program, a co-op opportunity out here in Sacramento. But I'm curious as to how the the co-op experiences are promoted to the students? How do you, what does the staff do to engage the students in choosing a co-op experience?
Sure, I can answer that. Well, first of all, thanks for calling in. We do know Spencer well, and it's great to hear from you, and really appreciative for the work that you've done out there around creating a new co-op position. One of the things that I'll say is that we work very closely as faculty with each of the students in a one-on-one advising model, so that students are coming in to meet with us several times throughout the quarter to talk to us not only about some of their aspirations and interests, dream jobs, etc., but also to really go through carefully a list of opportunities that we have. We look both at the site that I was just telling you all about, as well as our internal jobs list, and we talk through with them what kinds of opportunities that we have bubbling up or in the past that may be of particular interest to them. And then in addition, our students do a research on their own, both through the site and through the jobs list, and also a lot of conversation amongst each other, what has been working well and where students are excited coming back from the field. And so sometimes with a new opportunity, it takes a couple of rounds to get a student placed, but typically there's a lot of excitement and momentum that begins to build around a new co-op opportunity, and they come back on campus and share with the whole community during community meeting our co-op swaps that we do once a quarter. And that generally, again, kind of piques the interest of students who find out about a really cool opportunity that they want to go on themselves.
Ben, do you want to talk maybe about the process that you went through as a student firsthand, about how you found the co-ops that you're now in, and I think and your past co-ops?
Absolutely. You know, Rick has really been vital in kind of helping me find a co-op direction a lot of the time. I have a pretty acute sense of what I'm interested in, but the Alumni Network and the co-op network are both so vast that it really helps to get some direction sometimes. And in the case of my last co-op, when I worked in Antioch's admissions department and wound up doing social media for the school, Rick pretty early on had an idea that I should do that. And, you know, he sent me an email and said, I really think you should apply for this. And to be honest, I was not at the time particularly keen on working in Antioch's admissions department. I wanted to, you know, have the classic co-op adventure. I wanted to go to India and eat lentils and teach people English, or I wanted to, you know, go scuba diving off the coast of Zanzibar, which I think a student has done, actually. But, you know, Rick nudged me in that direction, and it turned out that it was perfect for me. I loved doing social media for the school. It was form of storytelling I hadn't really, you know, had the chance to do. It got me to know Antioch better and that sort of thing. And this time around, you know, I'm really happy that I wound up in D.C. I love my job, but Rick actually suggested to me, Mr. Glazer, coming out to Sacramento and possibly doing that. I didn't. I'd already applied at Blue Light, so, you know, the timing just didn't work out. But one of the things about having such a vast, robust system of co-op is that co-op advisors are really indispensable in helping. So I think for the advisor-advisee system, it goes a long way in addition to students talking amongst themselves and co-op swap and that sort of thing.
Thank you, Ben. I think, Richard, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I would just say thank you, Ben. That was kind of you to bring up all those details. I think the role of the co-op advisor is really crucial here. Every student at Antioch has a very deep relationship with their co-op advisor, and we are with them through thick and thin. And but you know, so we do that our fair share of sort of nudging students, saying, "I think this would be good for you to go out here." But the reality is that students have a lot of different things going on in their lives. There's various factors that they consider when they're thinking about the jobs that they are going after. Part of it is career and thinking about how are they positioning themselves for their futures. Other things that come in, though, are where do they have sources of support, community in the world, housing perhaps. These are factors that come into play. Where are their best friends going, of course, are part of their consideration. And we recognize that students have all those things that are in their equation. Spencer's, Mr. Glazer, your son had a wonderful and interesting trajectory just because of he's such a dynamic individual and positioned himself for so many different kinds of co-op jobs. One in Nashville in a theater, another in Nepal, in fact, working with an organization that supports mental health, people with mental health challenges post-earthquake there. So he did get that engaging in different languages and eating dal, as you mentioned, Ben. But all of those things, really, it was his interests and passion and gut feelings, I think, drove him, as well as, that being tempered through conversations with a co-op faculty member, thinking, what's realistic? What can you really do given your situation financially? And but to be strategic is what I think a lot of students are trying to move toward. It's a balance there. But just to say, Spencer's new job in Dayton, Ohio, working with a nonprofit organization that serves the homeless, is such a great expression. When you look backwards, the whole co-op trajectory makes sense. But when you're looking as a student front forwards, trying to decide what makes sense this coming spring or this summer, it's more difficult to piece together.
Thank you, Richard. Our next caller is Robert Peters from the class of 66, who is calling us from Silver Spring, Maryland. Good evening, Robert.
Good evening. I had a couple of questions and maybe some sort of comments. One is I was curious about the number of applications this year. You talked about the quality. The quantity is important to the college. Two, the Sierra Club magazine had an article on green colleges about a year ago that didn't mention Antioch at all. And I'm wondering if there's any kind of effort to connect to the Sierra Club because of the very green nature of Antioch. And third, part of a good part, perhaps most of my co-op experience benefit was going into different cities, learning how to live, to transportation, and my impression from the co-op students I've had contact with is that in general they're going back to the same employer, which has benefits, but I was just curious, are the students going back to the same employer or not? And finally, I'd just like to comment that Karen has done a terrific job with the alumni in the Washington, D.C. area.
Thank you, Robert. Garriott?
Sure. I'll try to take as many of those as I possibly can. I'm going to start with the Sierra Club's list of cool schools for sustainability. Sierra Club uses an assessment tool called STARS, which is a tool from the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education. We actually do have a steering committee on campus working on completing the next STARS assessment. That's co-chaired by Kim Landesbergen, an associate professor of biology and environmental science, and Hannah Spirison, our director of innovation and institutional effectiveness. So we are working on completing that very thorough and comprehensive STARS assessment, which looks at everything, including our curriculum, policies, how we use energy on this campus. It's a soup to nuts assessment of how well we do when it comes to sustainability. I did intentionally talk specifically about the quality of applications and not the number, because that number changes every day for us. Antioch College, prior to the start of the recruitment cycle for 2017, went from a traditional cycle of early admission with deadlines in the fall and regular admissions to a rolling cycle, which means that we read applications almost all year up until, in this cycle, July. So I will share the total app count at the end of cycle, but I find, as an admissions professional, it is not the best thing to do to share in a public space numbers that would be proprietary for marketing purposes. But I can tell you that we are reading applications. We have thousands of inquiries. We follow up. We have a really high-touch admissions program. We're very happy with the volume of applications that we're getting. But I think as a college, we have to pay very close attention, at least in this very early stage of our startup, to the quality of applications, because it has some direct impact on enrollment and retention on the other end of the spectrum.
For the co-op question, Louisa or Richard?
I think it happens on occasion that a student will go back to a job that they've held before, but actually I think that's quite rare. So when that does happen, it points to some special concern that a particular student might have, or a special issue that they're dealing with in their lives, perhaps. But actually, I think it's quite rare that a student repeats a co-op.
Thank you. We're going to hear now from Janet Stevens from the class of 1981 from Parker, Colorado.
Hi there. I was wondering if you were looking for people to help with college fairs in areas that you can't get to, like in the Denver, Colorado area.
Garriott?
A quick answer to that one, absolutely. Absolutely would love folks, even folks who live in places where there aren't active chapters, if folks are able to update their profiles. In the next week or so, we're going to be sending out a handbook for folks who would like to join the alumni recruitment team. There are some specific guidelines for folks to engage with high schools. We also accept transfer applicants. So if there are community colleges in your area where you think we might be able to recruit students for Antioch College, we'd like your help to connect there. So yes, absolutely.
Our next question will be from Peter Krielman from the class of 1967, and he is calling us from Phoenix, Arizona.
Good evening, everybody. Glad to be on this call. My question is to Garriott, and welcome back to the college. I'm sure your efforts will be greatly appreciated and will help the recruitment effort. My question is, there was an article, several articles in the Yellow Springs News. The one most recently, I believe, was in early February. But there was one previous that talked about the rather low enrollment of new students in the fall of 2017. So my question is addressed to what strategies, plans, approaches that admissions will take to greatly increase the number of students who do enroll in the fall of this year.
That's a big question, but I'm going to try to give you the Reader's Digest version of what we've been doing since I got back. One of the things that I had to do was quickly assess where the holes might be in our systems. I had to take a look at how we were collecting data, what our communications flows were to students. I wrote up a manual for members of our team on how to work their prospect and application pools. We've also been doing some training in the office so folks could get a better handle on the sophisticated use of our CRM, which is Slate. We took another look at where we have been recruiting, where students have been coming from. I also had to work with the faculty to assess thoroughly what kind of tools we were using to evaluate applicants once they came into the queue. We've been playing around with some advertising. We haven't done much as an institution with paid advertising. We had a flight of ads run recently in Mother Jones, and some of those metrics were positive. Working on putting together another digital ad campaign. Our team is about to go on the road for their spring travel. We have redesigned and rewritten all of our recruitment collateral to more effectively describe who we are as an institution. So there are lots of things that we're doing. There's a team of folks on campus. We sort of are a working team of communications professionals from different parts of the college. We put together an RFP for full redevelopment of the college website. Our college site is our most important marketing asset, and we have lots of work to do to get it up to speed to speak the Antioch story. So there are lots of things that we're doing in the world of marketing and advertising. There's lots of what we're doing in terms of how we talk to students about what we do at Antioch College, and we're also working more closely in admissions with our faculty and with the alums who have volunteered to fully vet applicants and to think more deeply about where we might find students who are the right match for Antioch. Antioch is a wonderful, awesome asset. Unfortunately, I didn't know it when I was going to college, but I came to know it, and I've found that it provides for students from all kinds of backgrounds and opportunity that isn't found elsewhere in higher ed. And we want to be sure that we get the message out about Antioch to the widest number of students possible.
Thank you, Garriott. So we're getting a few questions online about retention. So maybe we could get a student perspective from Ben about what has been. You are obviously, as a student, you have firsthand knowledge. You talk to your peers. How would you characterize the state of retention, and how would you explain the situation?
You know, I think Antioch, for a school with co-op, has remarkably good retention, because if you put an 18 or 19 or 20-year-old out in the world and say, hey, you're living in a house, you're having a job, and give them that taste of freedom, that can be really exciting. Students can say, I'm never coming back, but students do come back to Antioch quarter after quarter to continue their studies and bring what they've learned on co-op back with them, and it's really this kind of great marketplace of ideas that brings the outside world into Yellow Springs, which is sort of a cloistered, can be isolated community. So there's that. Now, it's no secret that in the past Antioch has struggled with retention, and I've seen that myself as a student. I've seen, friends struggle and think about leaving, and it would be dishonest of me, and I don't want to be pulling a fast one over on you or anything if I didn't mention that. But at the end of last quarter, I got to thinking about that and thinking about how, I as a student might be able to do something to help with that, because, I found a lot of my peers talking about that to me and amongst each other. So I thought about it, and I talked to fourth year Coco Gagne, who actually did the last telephone town hall as a student. And a couple years back, she had an idea to implement peer groups. And what it is 8 to 10 students from each class, first year, second year, third year, fourth years. They all come together. They support each other. They talk about what they might be struggling with academically or personally, and they share advice with each other on how to fix that. And so I presented that idea to Lori Collinsall, the provost and academic vice president, and Tom Manley, the president. And next quarter, I'm going to work with them to implement that, and I think that's a really interesting example of how.
Thank you, Ben. That was really amazing answer. We do have to wrap up just because we're getting to the end of our hour.
I'm excited about it. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We are going to take one more brief question, and that will be from Diane, who is calling us from Saugerties, New York. Diane, could you, good evening. Is it okay for you to go as quickly as you can with your question, as we are just running out of time?
I want to know the expected number of students for the coming term, or beginning in the fall, what is the maximum that could be accommodated, and what do you expect? How many do you expect to have, and what is the tuition?
Thank you.
All right. Our tuition right now stands at about $34,000. But I must say, because of the merit and need aid that we give, families in the lowest income quintile pay about $8,000 total after aid is applied. I can tell you that we have net tuition revenue goals that we're working toward. I can give you general ballparks on the sizes of the classes that the college had been trying to recruit. Somewhere between 50 and 75 students, but that number fluctuates so that I can maximize some of our aid dollars.
Thank you, Garriott. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Lisa. And thank you, Ben. I just have a few closing announcements. First of all is that a reunion is coming up July 12th to 15th in Yellow Springs, and registration opens on April 2nd. At the reunion, you'll be able to attend class with students, attend the Honorable Leanne Higginbottom Junior Distinguished Seminar Series. If you have an acronym for that, you should email us. You will be able to see who is the recipient of the first Winning Victories for Humanity grant, and you'll be able to dance at Div, which is everybody's favorite part of reunion. And another thing to mark in your calendar is that $1 Million March Match is 1 week away. This year, Trustee Barbara Winslow from the class of '68 will be matching your gift 1-to-1 up to $500,000 through the month of March, so that we can all join together to raise $1 million to support our extraordinary students through their life-changing Antioch education, so that we can send them on more amazing co-ops like the ones you've heard about tonight, and so that we can recruit more students. So stay tuned. You'll be hearing from us through March. You'll be getting emails. Students might call you for phonathon night. There will be challenges and contests and funny videos and maybe even prizes. And finally, the good news that we've been promising you is that we just learned that the new curriculum, which you've heard about in the fall phonecast, was approved by the Ohio Department of Higher Education, and the new calendar was just approved as well by the Higher Learning Commission of the North Central Association of Colleges. The new curriculum and calendar were the subject of our last Tele-Townhall, and you can read the transcript on the Antioch Alumni website. You are the first to know these news, actually, because the news is so fresh it hasn't been announced to the campus community yet. So thank you so much to our speakers tonight, Garriott, Richard, Lisa, and Ben. And thank you all to all of our listeners for joining us tonight and for caring for and supporting Antioch College. I can't think of any other place more deserving of our care and support. Have a wonderful night.